Hello, BookTube. Well, some of you may have seen in your video feeds that the new round of Tome Topple has begun. That's a 2-week-long readathon that I believe was created by Samantha at Thoughts on Tomes, but now it's hosted and moved forward by a good half-dozen really good BookTube channels. So, and the goal is just what it says in the title. The goal is to tackle those extra big books on your TBR and get them under your belt. Books that are longer than 500 pages. They're doing the whole 9 yards. They're doing Twitter reading sprints and title suggestions, read-along groups. There's a Goodreads group with all the folderols. It looks like a great deal of fun. I of course feel a little hesitant to join in with the social media side of it because I don't know how many of these people only know me from a stupid hashtag and a Twitter slur campaign of over a year ago. And I don't want to spoil the fun for anybody. So, but I do want to have a little bit of the fun myself, at least privately, or at least as privately as this gets. So I just wanted to show you my responses to those challenges. There are challenges that they make every time around, and I love the set that we've got this time. And the first one, of course, is to read more than one tome in the 2 weeks, which is no problem for me at all. I actually really like really long books. I always make a point of having one or two in that stretch of time, no matter what. And I'm reading 95% of what I read is new stuff, upcoming stuff. And just in the normal course of events, those will vary from very short to very long. So that challenge number one is not a problem. Challenge number two is a graphic novel. And Samantha has a little digression about it in her video about Tome Topple this time around. I'll try to remember to leave a link to her video down below, mentioning that in the past, the graphic novel component of the challenges was meant as a break from reading tomes. It was meant to be the only one that didn't have to adhere to the 500-page minimum. But that this time around, as she correctly points out, there are some behemoth graphic novels out there, so you don't get any relief this time around. The next prompt is a graphic novel, but it still has to be over 500 pages. But the nice thing of the allowance that she and all of her fellow tome topplers are making is that an omnibus is okay. It's not okay in any other category, like a 600-page collection of short stories, something like that, is not a tome, according to their rules. But in this case, an allowance is being made for omnibus editions. And that's good, because that's the one I want to do. It's this, the Bronze Age Batman Brave and Bold. Let me see if we can, how can we make this look so that you can see it? Negotiating the light here. That right there might be as good as we can get with the reflection and all. What about if we do it that way? Oh, that's a little better. These are there was a comic book called The Brave and the Bold, which was a team-up book, Batman and a different guest star every month. And this is a gigantic hardcover collection of virtually the whole run of The Brave and the Bold, which was written, most of it, by Bob Haney and drawn by Jim Aparo when he was at the peak of his form, when he was doing excellent work. His Batman is a big guy, but he's lean. He's a more athletic, less weightlifty, less Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns, and more svelte. And the way Bob Haney writes him is it's kind of funny. Actually, I haven't revisited these issues, a lot of them, since they came out. And this was back in the 70s, so it will be great fun to revisit them this time around. Bob Haney writes Batman as a cop in a cape. No supernatural element, no driven mania, no nothing like that. No sadomasochism, nothing like that. And if memory serves, the unintentionally funny part of a lot of these issues is that he also writes every guest star like they're a cop in a costume, which is it gets a little awkward when your guest star is 1 month the Teen Titans, the next month Wonder Woman, an Amazon princess who's never spent any time on a police force. But the Jim Aparo artwork, along with I'm forgetting off the top of my head who he has an excellent inker, just a fantastic, brings out the best in his work. And the artwork is really good, the writing is really entertaining, and the plots are all solid. You know, it's one and done. There are no continuations of any kind. And it's virtually the whole roster of the classic Bronze Age DC universe that teamed up with Batman, which at the time I always found a little strange, because this guy has no superpowers. And virtually every guest star does. There's one great issue where he teams up with Wildcat, the World War II pugilist superhero Wildcat. But for the most part, his guest stars have superpowers, sometimes enormous amounts of superpowers. So there are two very good guest stars by Supergirl. One by Wonder Woman, Superman shows up, the Teen Titans, all sorts of people. And you always wonder, I always wondered, well, okay, Bob Haney writes police procedural plot lines. Something is stolen. Someone is being clever and outwitting the cops, that sort of thing. Batman is called in. Batman gets help from someone else. But if you're Batman getting called in for an ordinary crime, and the help you're getting is from someone who can see in the infrared, rip open steel doors, then what are you needed for? And yet somehow I remember them working. I remember these things working. So I can't wait to just spend, you know, a good solid hour or two with this volume. So that will be my my graphic novel component. And then the next component is to read a book in a series. And this plays right into the genre that registers tomes with reckless abandon, and that is science fiction and fantasy, where there is apparently no editors exist anywhere in the science fiction world, because these things come out at 600 pages is just the acknowledgement section. And yet my choice for a book in series will not be a science fiction and fantasy volume. It'll be instead something we've seen on this channel before. It'll be a mystery. It's Prussian Blue by Philip Kerr. This is the latest in his Bernie Gunter series, a series of detective stories starring a relatively honest cop under the Nazis, German cop under the Nazis. Only this book is the longest Bernie Gunter novel that's ever been written, and also by far the most complex. Its timeline actually shifts from wartime years to post-war and back again. I read, I think, probably the first 100 pages when I got an advance copy, and I'm going to read the whole thing for Tome Topple. I would read it anyway. Wild horses couldn't keep me away. And then the third, or the fourth challenge is to do a buddy read with a tome. And BookTube, I still don't get buddy reads. I think I might just be not the right kind of person for a buddy read. I hear you all talk about them, and I don't know what it means. What does it mean to buddy read something? Maybe it just doesn't work for me because I read too fast. I don't, unlike the rest of you who have you know, significant others and lives and jobs and school and whatnot. I don't have any of that. So not only do I read really fast from sheer practice, but I read all the time. So, you know, if I, like for instance this, this, anything that I would show you, the next novel that I'm going to show you is 800 pages long. That is the work of one day for me. And that doesn't work for a buddy read. A buddy read, I gather, is when you're saying to your buddy, hey, I didn't get anything done today. I'm hoping I'm going to get a chapter done tomorrow, and then we can talk about it. Well, so that by the time you finished our buddy read book, I would be 20 books down the line. And I don't think it works. I think buddy reading a Tome Topple might be a challenge that I fail. So I'm glad that Samantha in her video said that this is not a serious challenge. You don't have to worry about it if you don't do it. But the last one is something I gave you a little sneak peek of it here. The last one is to read an adult book that's a tome. And this frustrates me just a little. It frustrates me just a little. It's an echo of the first 10 years of BookTube. that you would even need to specialize, that you would even need to stipulate that one of the tomes, one of the special challenges was to read a tome that's an adult book. The presupposition here is that everything that you will read for this entire challenge, for the whole thing, for the whole readathon, will be YA. And I'd like to think that in 2017, that isn't quite the given that it was, you know, when Tome Topple started, or long before Tome Topple started, when these people started their BookTube channels. I'd like to think that future iterations of Tome Topple might not even need to stipulate that it has to be an adult book, because you won't have 100% of the people who are responding all doing YA and needing a challenge to read an adult book. Instead, I would hope that in future iterations of Tome Topple, a new challenge can take the place of this last one, so that, because most of the people who are responding will just naturally be reading adult tomes. I would hope that's true. But one way or another, my adult tome is something we've seen on this channel before. It's The Duke's Children by Anthony Trollope, which I'm gladly going to read again. This is the Everyman's Classic library of it, and it is uncut. All the previous editions of The Duke's Children by Anthony Trollope were shortened by 40,000 words, and this is not. So this will be my adult tome to topple, and it won't be any trouble at all to do. My excuse, I've already read this. I've already read this uncut version and studied it with pencil in hand, picking out the bits and pieces that I don't recognize. And my excuse for reading it yet again will be that I think any day now I'm going to be getting the hardcover, a beautiful hardcover with that on the dust jacket, and I will gladly. It's like I said the other day on this channel when we were talking about rereading, and I was saying that my rereading is now mostly not a question of gems that I find at charity shops or the Brattle Bookshop. My rereading tends to be supplied by publishers, new editions of older things, that sort of thing. And because of the state of publishing, I mean, it might be losing money, but it's certainly vigorous. And because of the state of publishing, because of the wide variety of publishers out there, I always have some new and fascinating reread to do. In upcoming months, there is not one but 2 new annotated editions of Frankenstein, for instance. Or, if you can see it in the background here, these complete Old English poems that will all be rereads for me, but I'm gladly do it. It's a new edition, new translation, can't wait. And the same thing with The Duke's Children, and with many rereads to follow. So, but anyway, that is my Tome Topple for 2017, for what we're laughingly calling the spring of 2017. And if you're participating in Tome Topple, I would love to know what you're doing, what your responses are to these challenges, and even if you're not, even if you don't think you can find the time to participate, I'd still like to know, if you did, what would your challenges be? So feel free to make a video or tell me in the comments, and I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.